Here he is. Hi, Jake. How are you?
I'm very well, MJ. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. So why don't you give everyone a little lowdown as to who the fuck you are?
Yes, so I am an actor, a voice practitioner, vocal coach. Call it what I mean. There's so many different names for what I do, um, and I also am the co-artistic director of 6 Foot Stories, which is a theatre company. We make all kinds of exciting and different types of work, from Shakespeare to in immersive interactive shows at festivals.
Mm, amazing. And how are you faring this lockdown? The big question that everyone loves to ask.
Yeah, I mean it's been an interesting lockdown. I escaped London from the just before lockdown was announced, and have been in the countryside for 3 months, and only returned to London three weeks ago or so. So it's been up and down. There are lockdown days where you sort of feel like it's a bit of a struggle to motivate yourself to do anything, but it has been an interesting time of kind of recalibration and reconnecting with your sense of self, and
Yeah,
what a great opportunity it is to have that. But of
yeah,
course, it's a challenging time for many, and
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Instagram Live does this really fun thing where it cuts you off after an hour, and they're like, "Okay, it's enough of you." So I'm gonna just jump right into it.
Great.
Why don't you tell anyone who's watching what Boomtown is?
Okay, so in a nutshell, Boomtown is a an independent music festival, um, which the kinds of music that happen there are very eclectic. There's a whole wide range of different styles and genres, but I suppose Boomtown has become known as the UK's biggest kind of immersive theatre experience, and that's a journey that has kind of happened over the course of, well, from 2012 onwards, and it's I heard one person describe it as it's like Disneyland for fuck ups. It's that kind of, it's like a playground for adults, and it's a really thrilling, mad place to be
Yeah,
and experience
yeah.
whatever you experience there.
Just for kind of a frame of reference, about how many people were there last year?
Oh gosh. I mean, I think they had increased their capacity maybe up to about 70,000. Maybe I'm not sure if the numbers are right on that. And it has grown every year. I mean, it used to be the first year that I was there in 2012. The whole
Mm,
festival site was in the what they call the Matterley Bowl, which is this kind of like, valley thing where the whole festival was kind of in that. But over the years, it's sprawled out onto the hills and valleys
mm,
on the other side, and then the forests and things. So, yeah, it's a big event. It's a big event, and
right.
um, yeah.
Yeah, roughly how many performers are there usually?
Well, with the team that I have been associated with, a company called Dank Parish. I think last year they had. This is just in one particular district within the because of course Boomtown, the whole conceit of the festival is that it's built like a town, so it,
Hmm.
it, it looks like walking around, it looks like you are in an actual city, or and there are shop fronts and facades and things. So you're completely immersed in the world of Boomtown.
Yeah.
With the team that we were with, I think Dank Parish employed maybe about 200 performers. I mean,
Wow.
it was a big team, and that's kind of split over. I think they had 3 venues there last year, and then a team of walkabout performers. So
Hmm.
yeah, quite expansive and a lot to manage, and yeah.
God, I mean it. That like the ratio of performers to audience members is like massive. It's like
Mm.
humongous. Um, so yeah, I'm not even gonna pretend like I'm gonna be able to do math quickly enough on that, but
No,
that's just
nor
humongous.
I. Yeah,
But
yeah.
good. And if you feel comfortable sharing, what exactly is the compensation on that job?
Well, it's look. I mean, it's a kind of sorry state of affairs, really, because in many ways, from running a theatre company, of course, it is understandable. Budgets only go so far, and they have to, because the quality at Boomtown is so high in terms of the set design. It's all of those material, and because it's not like dressing a space that already exists. I mean, it's in the middle of a field,
Yeah.
so everything that is brought there is built in that moment. So all of that has to be. So the budgets only stretch to, you know, I think performers get about 90 quid for the weekend.
How many
But
days is that?
so they arrive on the Wednesday evening or afternoon evening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the first day of performance would be either the Thursday or the Friday, and then it goes through to the Saturday, Sunday, and then everyone leaves and packs up on the Monday morning. Um,
So 90 quid for
nine, nine,
Wednesday to Sunday.
£90 for Wednesday to Sunday. But I mean, look, they it's kind of the compensation and the draw for performers going into that field is that actually they get to experience the festival. They
Yeah.
get the company has done has tried to provide a one hot meal a day kind of thing, and they will occasionally will be able to get their hands on some drinks vouchers or some meal tokens, which I'm torn. I mean, having worked there for the last 8 years without a year off, um, you invest so much time and money, and it does get to
Yeah.
a point where it does feel like the gratification from it, or the recompense just isn't enough. It's not substantial
Yeah.
enough. It's not
Right.
sustainable either, I think.
Yeah. I mean, so really it's a thing of, you're there from Wednesday to Sunday, sorry, Wednesday to Monday. You get £90. You get one hot meal a day, and you get the experience of the festival, which, like, obviously with any company that's starting out, like as you said, you're a theater maker, you know how expensive it is, and especially when you're starting to do anything really. But considering you've been doing it for 8 years, is that something that has grown over time, or has it remained the same?
No, it's definitely grown. I mean, in the early days, we did it for nothing. We did it for the love of it. We did it for I guess the experience of going to a festival for free. Not having to pay for that ticket, which
Yeah.
I think Boomtown, it's maybe like 250, 260 quid, something like that. I don't know. I've never paid for a ticket. So but that's quite that's an expense, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of money, especially for a lot of us performers, where we kind of live. A lot of us live hand to mouth. kind of month by
Yeah.
month. Like 260 quid is a lot to kind of squirrel away and put on a festival. So
Hmm.
having the opportunity to do that, to go there um, without forking out that money, but the return being that you're performing there,
Yeah.
like it in the beginning it's a good deal. It
Yeah,
works
in the beginning, of
in the
course.
beginning, but then when you start to build that, and the festival and Boomtown started to see what the potential for what immersive theatre could offer,
Hmm.
um, that was when the budget started to increase, which meant that we were able to pay ourselves a bit. Okay, it's not a lot of money, but it is, at least it's a token. It's a gesture of we value you. But I
Yeah.
suppose the work that I have done over the last couple of years, I kind of feel that that token just isn't enough, and I think it's my feeling that I think it just perpetuates this, this undervaluing of the workforce. I mean, I was talking to someone the other day and saying that, well, is it immersive theatre if there aren't any performers? What's if otherwise it's just a bunch of audience members dressed up in a beautifully designed set. There's no
Yeah.
story, there's nothing, there's nothing going on. um
Yeah.
yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah. I well, because I very much of the mind of like it's someone actually. It's kind of like if you're a performer for like say you're a performer for like God, I don't know who's popular these days. I have absolutely no goddamn idea. And say you're like a performer for Dua Lipa, or is that how you say her name? I picked the wrong person. It's fine. Good example, MJ. Good. No, it's like you're a performer for Little Mix. There, I know how to pronounce that one for sure. You're a performer for Little Mix, and it's like okay, so we're gonna pay you less than minimum wage, but you're going to the concert for free, and the concert tickets are like £200.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And it's a bit like, yeah, but you're like, just to play devil's advocate for your point, it's just that thing of how is a free ticket to the thing that you're performing at? How does that count as compensation? You know what I mean? Um, and I'm not saying that like maybe like I completely understand the other side of it, but I'm just to argue the other side. Um, yeah. Someone has just George has just said this is a problem through most art forms. How do you think we can make this a better situation going forward, especially with the amount of money coming from art? Good question. What do you think, Jake?
Mm. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know, it, I think it would just be good to start having these conversations. I think that in some ways I feel very optimistic about the current situation with COVID, and in some ways it feels like this is a perfect opportunity for us to reassess the
Mm-hmm.
systems and the mechanisms that we have been working with for the last,
Yeah.
however long it's been. And I think that, I mean, I can only really speak from the perspective of a voice practitioner, right? That and the research that I have been doing, and that actually where my work has really helped is in prevention, uh, rather than in cure. So my work. So basically, just to give a bit of a rundown of what that research looked like over the course of the 8 years working at Boomtown, all performers lost their voices after the first day of the shows. And that was a trend that happened every single year, myself included. And I've always been interested in voice, but I wasn't, I wasn't a practitioner, a voice practitioner at that
Mm.
in those early stages, but it has informed what I have gone into, and what I am interested in, and what I have discovered over the years is that actually it's about having a voice person coming into those. Well, first of all, the creative discussions with the design team, because designers in some ways are kind of separate from the performance itself. And actually, if you can have a conversation, if someone like me is there to have a conversation with those designers and say, well, look, this is how the setup is going to be in terms of the mechanics of the performers walking through this space, and they're going to have a one-on-one conversation with this person, or they're going to have, they're going to hold people in this space, and they're going to, so
Mm.
it's about saying, well, we're putting we're building this thing inside a giant marquee, but we're putting walls up. We're putting MDF walls up everywhere and designing the whole thing. So that is useful to know for me, a voice practitioner, to then help the performer when they eventually get into the field to say, look, when you are in that space, you've got so much other sound, uh, the sonic landscape around you. You're going to be competing with it. Boomtown is a loud place. There is music everywhere, and it's loud, and they do really well to kind of separate the spaces,
Mm-hmm.
but but there's still bleed, and there's still and performers get into this habit of pushing, and when they start pushing, that's it. You're wrecked for the weekend. It's
Yeah.
not going to recover that quickly. But in having those conversations with that design team and being able to say, well, yeah, let's put a wall. Can we have a wall there? So that then the performer can use that wall to bounce their voice off of them, so that actually
Yeah.
they're not having to project so hard, and they can corral the group of people that they're talking to, the audience, into this space, so that their voice is heard in a safe and comfortable way. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that answered the question, but it's it's those kinds of conversations, I think, that
Yeah.
in some ways, I've faced a lot of resistance from uh, the festival world in
Yeah.
in in regard to, there seems to be a view that a voice practitioner, a voice coach, is a luxury. It's an expense not really worth investing in. I mean, that may be a bit close to the bone. I'm not sure, but that is certainly a feeling I have come up against, and I
Yeah.
think it's about having these conversations and convincing people that it's not a luxury, it's a necessity.
Absolutely. And it's interesting how I, for me personally anyway, as a performer, I find that the jobs that are the worst pay, um, tend to take care of you the least. Like they're the ones in terms of for your well-being, whereas it's all like I almost feel like it needs to be it should what it logically should be is the opposite. Like we're not paying you, but we're going to make sure you're really really well taken care of, because we don't have the luxury to pay you
Mm.
any compensation. Whereas like it's the cushy ones, like if you're in the West End or whatever, like you better believe that there's a physiotherapist on hand, that you've got like oh, you got a little rolled ankle, oh my god, why don't you just like why don't we get like 700 things to help you.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
it's
Mm.
it, it's and it's such a simple thing, even like even with care, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just something so rare, and there's so many situations that it's like that. Like Edinburgh Fringe Festival, for example, is like riddled in like whether you're an actor or a dancer or whatever. Like I know dancers where they'll show up to a play of like a job that's really like crap pay, and then they'll be like, oh yeah, so can you do like knee slides on this concrete like 7 times? Great. And it's just like, but because people will say yes, because artists continue to say yes, that's the thing. And being like, oh yeah, can you yell at 150 people? no mic. You don't get a mic. We don't have budget for a mic. But can you just yell at them for like 6 hours? Great.
Well, there's also that fear. I think that yes culture comes from that fear that if you say no, you're not going to have those opportunities again. You're not going to be asked to work again, and
Yes.
that's messed up. Messed up. Like, why would we put ourselves through that? Why do we do that? You know. I think it comes with. I think it also comes with experience, doesn't it? Like I've said, I've been in the biz since 2011. Like that's like 9 years of in some way, shape, or form, like performing in lots of different settings. And I think when you first start out, that eagerness of youth, you will you will do anything for very little reward, of course. But as you get older, it becomes more of a sort of, actually, do you know what? I'm not putting up with this. Actually, do you
Yeah.
know what? No, no.
Yeah. Yeah. It took me years to get to a point where I was like, no, I don't need this job that badly. I would rather work in a pub around the corner where I know I'm like I'm not endangering myself, or like, you know what I mean. It's
Mm,
just it's like that feeling. I feel like what happens a lot in the creative industries is that people feel like it gets hammered into their brains how replaceable they are, because they are, because you have kids graduating each year from all like the different schools, the dance schools, drama schools, whatever, or not from any schools, and they just decide they want to become a performer, which is absolutely great.
yeah,
But because they don't know, they're like, yes, yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do that. Yes, of course I'm gonna do that. Oh my
yeah,
god, like, oh my god, I'm performing as a job. And then it's just this like wow
yeah,
of, and
yeah.
and looking back at some of the things I said yes to, I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe I did that. Jesus Christ. It's just, yeah, it's just so horrible, and it's not talked about enough,
No,
you know.
no.
But that's why, I mean, I'm assuming that you're, well, if anyone listening, if you don't know what equity is and you're a performer, oh my god, that's the that's stop listening right now and go find out what equity is, because equity is the union, and this is why I feel so passionately about equity. It's anyway. Standardized pay. What, and do you have any horror, like any stories that kind of stick out in your mind of something that you said yes to, that present Jake looks back at past Jake and is like, you fucking idiot.
um, yeah, I mean, there are a few. There are a few I could think of. I guess there are sort of too many to list, really. I think. For all of the, there are certain things that have happened, at Boomtown, for example, where it has been, I look back at the early days of when we first started there and the show that we were doing there, the Church of the Sturdy Virgin, and actually in those early days we were a very small crew. There were only 7, 8 of us, maybe fewer, and we were doing it for the love. We were doing it for the love of it, and actually we put ourselves in quite compromising situations. You know, carrying. I mean, the whole thing was, a bespoke funeral service. So as an audience member, you turn up and you get to attend your own funeral.
Yeah.
But walking out of the church, carrying a person in a coffin on your shoulder and taking them outside to a graveyard and lowering them down into a grave when it's the rain's coming down and there's mud everywhere, like it was dangerous and silly, like, and we, in the early days, we would just do it because it was, no, we've got to do it, we've got to get it done. But then as the years went by, health and safety gets involved in your own kind of mentality, and you go, no, we're not we're not putting ourselves through this because it's
Yeah.
we could kill ourselves. We could literally kill ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but as well, it's I do think that in that same breath, it is the responsibility of a performer to like as much as it's the employer's responsibility to protect us. It is also our
Yeah.
responsibility to know exactly what our rights are. Like I read like Equity puts out loads of new stuff all the time. Even just I like you said experience and things. The onus really is on us because a lot of the times it's about just going out and educating
Mm.
yourself as to what we need to do. Like I mean, I did a job earlier this year where it was it was insane what was being asked of us of the performers, and a lot of the performers on that job hadn't done a performance like that before, and
Mm.
I just was like, absolutely not, absolutely fucking not, we're not doing that. That's not, they can't, because
Mm.
it's one thing if someone presents you with a job, they're like, these are the circumstances,
Mm.
such as Boomtown, it's like, these are the circumstances, this is the pay,
Mm.
and then now you as a performer have to make a decision. Okay, do I want to do that? Fine. And then that responsibility is now on you. You've already had all of the circumstances laid out. But then there's that situation where you've had circumstances laid out, and then all of a sudden you get there and they're like, oh actually, oh actually, oh actually. And then it's like, this is not what I signed up for.
Mm.
This is not the job that was sold to me. And so I'm
Yeah.
gonna say no. You know what I mean? Like I
Mm.
might have said yes even with the given circumstances, but you didn't present those to me.
Mm.
Um, and and like I remember getting messages from other performers on that job who just like private messages who were like I learned a lot about what my rights as an employee was, just because I didn't realize that that was even an option. I didn't even realize that what they were asking me for was ridiculous. You know
Mm.
what I mean?
Mm. Mm.
Um, so yeah, it's insane. Like what? Like do you feel like there was any like specific situation that gave you like that aha moment?
Not really. I think it's a kind of, general build of circumstances that kind of increase each year. I mean, I think with the festival work particularly, there are because I think in the early days we were doing it for the love of it, and there was really this feeling of we're all just going to roll our sleeves up and muck in wherever we need to. It's not
Mm-hmm.
like we turned up as performers and the set was all built for us and ready to go. No, we were building it as well. We were dressing it. We were doing all of those jobs. But as time has gone on and the company, Dank Parish, has kind of got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger,
Mm-hmm.
they've been able to employ people to actually do the build. They've employed people to whose responsibility it is to do that, so that the performers can just turn up and do the work that they do. Uh, I mean, I don't know what the situation is or was over the last couple of years because my involvement in it, I was in a slightly different. I was doing something slightly different in voice coaching them. So,
Mm-hmm.
but there is, I think, in that festival world, there is a sense in which someone may ask you to, can you tear these walls down? Can you help us like rip up this carpet? Can you?
Yeah.
Um,
I think we've lost Jake for a second.
I'm back.
Sorry, you
Hello.
just cut out for a second. Say that last bit again. You are back.
I'm back. So yeah, there is a sense in which sometimes someone may ask you to like, can you help us rip up this carpet that we've laid down for the weekend, or can you move that set
Mm-hmm.
over there and stuff, which is not unreasonable demands. But what I think is unreasonable is someone not turning up for their shift because they've had a big night last night and they're still they haven't been to bed yet, and they're still partying, and because they're doing that, it means that you've got to do their shift as well, because there's not enough performers to be able to do it. I mean, a few years ago when I was running one of the venues for Dank Parish, um, I mean, as the venue manager running that venue, obviously I wanted it to run as smoothly as possible, but it was that particular year was we were riddled with so many problems and issues, and the team that had been compiled and put together
Yeah.
didn't quite work out. There were some really unpleasant individuals in that particular
Yeah.
team who they were just there to get fucked up at a festival. They weren't there for the work at all. It was just there
Yeah.
to they yeah, and that's a really frustrating. That's really frustrating, and it
Yeah.
I had that was really that was a really dark moment, a really dark time for me. I remember waking up on the it was either the Saturday or the Sunday morning. I think it was the Sunday morning. I was just utterly exhausted, and
Yeah.
it just woke up in my tent and crying my eyes out. Just like, I just can't. I cannot do this. I do not want to do this. This is not fun. This is just not fun. I want to go home. I don't want to do this
Yeah.
anymore. And because of course
Yeah.
it's not just the Sunday may be the last day of the festival, but then there's the Monday where we've got to take it all down, and the work
Yeah.
isn't over. It's not the final day. It's not the last hurrah. It's the work continues, and it was exhausting. Um, and since that moment, I have completely gone. I'm not.
Can't do it anymore.
I can't do that. I just can't. I can't. And
Yeah.
don't want
I
to. I
mean,
don't want to.
yeah. And it goes back to that point of the responsibility is on the performer to A, say no, but also B, to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
And especially in the festival culture, as you were saying, it is so, there is this huge culture of hedonism, but not just actually in festival, but in the creative industries in general, where it's kind of like, how common is it after you do a show, like, oh, everyone's going to the pub for a pint, like and it's just like kind of an everyday regular thing. And then sometimes it'll just be an even bigger night, like you said, like people just won't go to sleep because they're super drunk or they're super high or this, that, the other thing. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's so huge, but as well, that's how you like socialize. Like that's how you gain your connections, isn't it? Um, so yeah, how did that did you find that there was like a separation of the different types of people, like people who were engaging in it and people who weren't, or um,
Uh, I don't think it was as binary as that. I mean, I think
mm-hmm.
there were perhaps individuals who did take a, a stance on either one of those extremes. But I think it is more sort of. I think that there are certainly people like. Look, I'm not. I'm not. My role isn't to say what you should or shouldn't do.
No, of
Like
course.
if you want to have fun, have fun. If you want to go and take all of the drugs, take all of the drugs. If you want to go and get really drunk, go and get really drunk. Do that, fine, as long as it doesn't affect my work. As long as
Yeah.
you're not endangering yourself or others, then it's all fine by me. Um, I mean, I think that the other problematic issue with a place like Boomtown, and certainly something that in the early days I felt, was that because Boomtown is such an intense experience, because it is like Disneyland, but like ramped up a few like gears. That there is that I don't think I've ever done a I don't think I've ever been. There's not been a single kind of moment at Boomtown where I've been sober, completely sober. Do you know what I mean? It's that feeling sometimes where you've sort of got to join in order for it all to make sense in a weird way.
Mm.
And I think that, there are people who look after themselves really well, but even in the best will of the world, it is exhausting, and
Yeah.
you've got to have I don't know, you've just got to have your own kind of, yeah, your own boundary, and
Yeah.
knowing what that is, and going. I mean, I think what Dank Parish has done really well is they have said, and they, like, it is, if you turn up to your shift and you're drunk or you're high, we're not letting you work. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just you're out straight away, gone, which is absolutely the right thing to do. It's absolutely the right
Absolutely.
thing to do. Um,
Yeah, I mean, Jen's Liam Gallery, sorry, I don't know your real name, but she's saying it really depends. My events had a zero tolerancy for people who worked to be high as a kite, which as you just said, very true and very very necessary. You know what
mm,
I mean? It is so so necessary, but like it's crazy that that's not like, oh, you're coked out, you're too coked out to work. How are you not fired? Do you know what I mean?
mm,
Like how that doesn't exist as a standard,
mm.
you know? Um, yeah, I mean, because it's as especially as a voice practitioner, your like how much that actually affects your voice. Just just you're dehydrating yourself, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
What are the short and long term effects of doing all of that to your voice specifically?
Well, I mean, in the short term, I mean, look, the sleep, substances, and sustenance. Those are the three kind of ideals that you want to be addressing, particularly in relation to vocal health at festivals. In that setting, you want to make sure that you are getting sleep, because the vocal folds themselves do need that time to recover. You need to make sure that you are keeping hydrated, and it's not just about you know having a few sips of water before you go on and start performing. Like, the vocal fold, that the water that you drink doesn't reach the vocal folds until 2 hours later, once it has gone through the whole system, because of course it's a different pipe, right? The vocal folds themselves don't get moist through that physical water as you swallow. So you've got to make sure that you're keeping hydrated at least 2 hours before the show. If you are feeling particularly dry and raspy, steaming will help you. It is actually your probably only friend at the festival in the short term. I mean, if you're and making sure that you are, I mean, the kind of, because it is such an intense experience, people do sort of forget, like, normal meal times go out of the window. You might have a breakfast, but then you might not eat something until after you finished your shift, or and it's very sort of bitty like that, because it's time sort of doesn't really exist at a festival, because it's all, or time does exist, but it's just based around who's playing at what time. Do you know what I mean? So you're constantly moving. So I think rest is the crucial thing. I mean, then when it comes to substances, alcohol is going to dry you out. It's going to dehydrate you. Um, Illicit drugs are also going to have drying effects on the vocal folds. I mean, there's no beating around the bush. That is going to happen. What I will say, and what I have said to the people who I've coached at Boomtown, obviously I don't advise that you take drugs or drink copious amounts of alcohol. Obviously, I don't advise that. But if you are going to, then make sure that you are doing all of the other things that I have outlined will
Yeah.
at least alleviate those problems
Yeah.
in some way. Because actually the long term effect is, you're there for 4 days and you might lose your voice after maybe the second or third day of the festival. The Sunday is you probably are going to be tired, and the voice is going to be a bit knackered, but it will recover. But who the vocal folds themselves are not they're tiny millimeters. They're very, very delicate membranes, and it's like if I sat here and clapped my hands for an hour or like for 6 hours, like because that's essentially what the vocal folds are doing. They're creating those vibrations by hitting together. And if I'm pushing and I'm making that happen like really loudly and really, what's going to happen to my hands? Well, they're going to get red and they're going to get sore. They might even start bleeding, right? And that's what's happening on the within the larynx and the vocal folds themselves. So they start bleeding, then they get that scarring develops. Then you're going to end up with this really raspy quality to your voice. Do you want that? Is that something that you want? You can't fix it once it's happened. You cannot fix it.
Yeah.
It takes, there are other compensations that will have to be made in order to, progress with your life. As a voice user.
I mean, have you met performers where they've just lost range permanently?
Yes. So I've worked with a few people who have. So a few people who work on Crystal Maze. They came to me because they completely have lost the upper register of their voice, and it's their feeling that is a direct consequence of having to those performing environments. It's challenging, and I don't really know what the answer is other than starting these conversations with the companies themselves, because maybe it's not. I don't think that companies are, I don't think that they are doing it intentionally. They're not. It's not a vindictive thing. They're not saying, "Oh yeah, don't care about your voices." Just all we care about is the production. All we care about is the money and blah blah blah. All of that stuff. I don't think they're doing it intentionally. I just think that there isn't awareness. There isn't enough awareness of how, and because, this is, I think, where my research is sort of heading, is I would like to find out. I'd like to discover more of those long-term effects of performers in these environments, and if it is sustainable to continue working in this way. I'm not sure that it is. I think things have to change.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And it's interesting because these doing events like Boomtown and other like festivals that aren't necessarily are paid in the experience as opposed to actual monetary compensation. Um, it does attract a lot of young performers who are like new singers, new dancers, new actors, and obviously because it's just that sheer thrill of like, oh my god, I'm performing for a thing.
Yeah.
Um, and because at these events, that's where you're probably going to get the most kind of hedonism, and that's where you're going to be most surrounded by all of those things that are going to create that damage that you're talking about. um, yeah, and it's just, again, that pressure to say yes, not only to the job, but like finding yourself in scenarios where you, like, I just, personal observation is that the people who kind of engage in that kind of activity the most tend to be the ones who get asked back over and over again because they've gained that bond. What do you like? Do you feel like there's almost a pressure to do it within to engage in those activities?
I think there is, actually. I think that there is this sort of sense in which you haven't quite arrived within the experience unless you engage fully with everything that is on offer. And that actually, yeah, there is this culture within the festival world that I have experienced. I don't know if this is true across the board, but certainly in my experience, there is this difficulty in separating the work from the play,
Mm.
and that somehow those lines get a bit muddied, and that
Yeah.
performers do feel like they have to, yeah, engage in those activities in order to, you know, not sort of ingratiate themselves with the company, or to sort of like leave an impression. I don't think it's that necessarily, although there might be a sense of that somewhere. But I think it's, yeah, my overriding feeling is that it's not sustainable. And of course, it's not that's not a general assumption either. I mean, I think there are individuals who know themselves, right? They know, they
Of
sort of go,
course.
yeah, I am going to go to my tent after I have finished my shift, and I am going to go to sleep. That's what I'm going to do. I don't really care for the lineup. I'm here to do my job, and that's what I'm going to do. Um, I've had experiences myself where at Boomtown or at other festivals. I mean, last year at Green Man, I after we finished the show on the Saturday night, I went back to the tent and had a shower and got into my sleeping bag and was like, I'll just have a little nap. And I didn't wake up until the next morning. And actually, it was, and in that, the next morning, I kind of went, oh, I missed out on that kind of Saturday night feeling of, but then I kind of also went, well, that's what my body needed. I needed that sleep. I'd been, at Boomtown the week before, straight to Green Man to do a different show and different thing. So, of course, it's exhausting, and you've got to look after yourself. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
But I suppose with regard to voice, that actually, I think that performers, you in those settings, you have there's a real spectrum of different types of performers that are there. There are people who have trained. There are people who haven't trained. There are people who aren't even actors or performers, that they're just there because a friend of theirs is involved in the company somewhere or other, but they are kind of engaging, and they can sort of do that
Yeah.
work. So with that broad spectrum of people, I think the dangerous thing is that, you know certainly in the early days, there was this feeling of, I knew that good practice before a show is to warm up. But there was also this feeling that if I did warm up for this thing that we're doing in the middle of a field, that I'm going to be laughed at for warming up. That they're gonna take the piss out of me because I'm
Yeah.
I'm doing that kind of wanky actor shit. And it's like, well, hang on, this is important. Like, why is that a thing? Why is that a thing? That's
Yeah.
that's just weird. It's just that's kind of
Yeah.
weird, isn't it?
I mean, as well because these events and I mean, so many shows and jobs and whatever. Again, generally tends to be the ones that don't pay as well as is standard. It's
Mm,
you're going because your friends are going because it's a personal thing and you're gonna have
mm,
you're gonna have a great time. But then it's that thing of like your friend is asking you to push your voice to a ridiculous level,
yeah.
and it's like and that separation of personal and professional like is surprisingly rare for people
Mm,
to be able to do, um and allowing yourself to say no. Even though you didn't say no to the job, you can say no to the conditions.
yeah.
Like you can say yes to the job, and then when they ask you, like, oh yeah, can you yell at 200 people for 5 hours? You can say no. You know what I
Mm,
mean?
mm, mm, mm.
Um, yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Um, oh God. So because we're kind of getting into our last little bit, and
Mm-hmm.
me being me, I always have to end on positive things. Um, in yeah, always.
Always.
Uh, is there is what do you think? What do you think has been within your last 9 years? I did my math right. Good. Your last 9 years of being a performer. What do you think the biggest lesson you've learned in taking care of your voice is?
Crikey. I mean, I think the biggest lesson I've learned is that actually, um, it's all about breath. I think.
Mm,
I think it's for me. The biggest thing that I came to realize was that if I can pay attention to my breath, and if I can allow my breath to be as free as possible, for the diaphragm to do what the diaphragm needs to do without any kind of muscular effort, then somehow I'm connected really deeply to what it is that I want to say, and I'm connected really deeply to my control of my vibrations, and being able to, um, with great subtlety and with great skill, be able to care for myself by modulating within a space that I'm in, or not, as the case may be. Because of course, in play like festivals, you go from extreme to extreme to extreme. You could be, talking to a big crowd of people outside of the venue where there are sound systems blasting from all sorts of places and you're not mic'd, to then going inside the venue in a small little space room that has been set up, and it's just one on one with someone, and being able to very quickly adapt to each of those environments. um, that is only possible with the breath.
mm,
It's only possible with understanding that actually in that moment of that crowd, I need a bigger breath. I need my diaphragm to really, you know, get the lungs moving downwards, pull the air, the breath right into my body, right deep down into my pelvis. I need it to go right down there. Um, but then with that one-to-one performance in that little room, I don't need to do that much. I can keep it
yeah.
all really kind of settled, and really coax them, whatever it may be. And that I think is, yeah, that's the greatest lesson that I have learned. And warming up is crucial.
Yeah.
Warming up is crucial.
God. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a muscle. It's muscles, like you were
It's
just saying.
muscles.
Like, is it like just the way that I like any Cirque du Soleil performer would never go on stage without having done like a little stretch or whatever.
Yeah,
Like, and how often we like you said, people just go on cold. Like, what are you
yeah,
doing?
yeah,
Just like whether it's your body or your voice or what, or just emotionally warming yourself into a role. Like, it's
yeah,
like how people just like think that that's gonna happen,
yeah.
because yeah, it's crazy.
Well, I guess it's because they can't see the muscles. They can't see those muscles, so they're like, well, if I can't see them, then I don't really need to worry about them so much. No, not the case. Warm your voices up. Just do it. Just warm your voice up. Come on.
Oh my god. Okay, favorite role.
My favorite role ever,
Mm,
like what that I've played, that I've done, or
yeah.
gosh, oh crikey. I mean, yeah, I suppose when we did our version of Macbeth, the witch characters that we played, I really loved playing those witches, because they're just, you know they're
Yes.
they're they're grimy, they're dirty, they're sort of, uh, you know grotesque, magical. It's
We
all,
have Lim Bobbly saying Jimmy Bannister.
yeah. So from the dinner is coming, at the vaults. Yeah, no, I mean that was fun, but no, I didn't have a.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Oh, the vaults.
Ah, the
Oh, back
vaults.
when, yeah. I mean, talk about hostile environment for your voice.
Ah, for goodness sake, yeah,
Literally, a sewer. You're performing in an old sewer. Really.
yeah.
Oh my lord. Okay, and one thing that you're grateful for. No, three things. Fuck it. We're gonna say three things. Three things that you're grateful um, for the last 9 years of your performing life.
I'm grateful for the people that I have met along that journey. They've invariably added to my process as a practitioner, and I've learned a great deal for that. I'm grateful for the opportunities from the festivals that we've been given, and that we continue those conversations continue. Gosh, and a third thing that I'm grateful for, I guess, the support from my loved ones. That's a huge thing for me. That being, that they support me, and that they kind of allow me to do that, and to fulfill that journey in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are my three.
Yeah. I mean, what you are trying to achieve in pushing forward protection and like you said, preventative measures is so important. I do think that I'm frozen. Am I
You are
frozen for
you
you?
are frozen. Yeah,
Great.
you are.
Um,
You're back. You're moving.
and now, oh, I'm back. I'm moving. Great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah,
I think one of the biggest things that kind of hit home for me was that it's about preventing the shitty thing from happening.
yeah,
As opposed to like crisis control. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Um,
Crisis
yeah.
control in those settings, like having a voice practitioner there is better than nothing. But once you've lost your voice, I can't bring it back for you. The damage is already done. It's gone.
Yeah.
I can then help you to, recalibrate your breath and recalibrate some of those muscles. Maybe kind of massage them out, teach you how to massage them out a little bit, but it's not a quick fix. And I'd much rather use my skills in the lead up to it, and give you the tools to be able to prevent that,
Yeah.
than try to fix it at the end.
Yeah. You're going to be cut off. We're going to be cut off in 5 seconds. So I just want to thank everyone for tuning in. And thank you, Jake, so much for coming on.